Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to begin with respect to our discussions on our journeys, our explorations, and our discoveries in respect of the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2022. Now that brings us to a title which was released by Criterion a few weeks back, in fact at the start of the year. That is a title that Criterion has designated at Spy Number 1108. It is a work from 1998. The filmmaker is Thomas Vinterberg. And the name of the work is, and please pardon me for my very poor pronunciation of the Danish language, but the title of the work is Festen. It is known in English as The Celebration. This is the work from 1998, and it is from the filmmaker Thomas Vinterberg, and it stars among its incredible cast people like Henning Mortensen and Bertha Neumann, and Thomas Bo Larsen and Paprika Steen and Ulrik Thomsen, and Hella Dolores and Trina Derholm and others. This is the work which is called, or it's oftentimes referred to in English as The Celebration, or in the Danish language, the title is Festen. Now, once again, I apologize profusely for my poor pronunciation of the Danish language. I hope you can forgive me. I will do my very best, but where I fail or make errors, I apologize in advance. I'm very sorry, but once again, I will try my best with my own very limited capabilities of language. In any event, my friends, this is The Celebration, or Festen. The story of this work is, or could be described as, centering around or involving this celebration, this birthday party, this gathering of family and friends in this picturesque locale setting, this hotel setting that seems to be out in this very beautiful, picturesque countryside atmosphere. And the center of these particular occasions are the center is the patriarch of this particular family, the Henning Mortensen character. And we understand that this is his birthday celebration and a gathering of not just close associates, but also his close family unit, so members of the family. So we have the patriarch and the matriarch, the mother and father, the husband and wife characters, the Henning Mortensen and the Bertha Neumann characters, respectively. And then also their children, who are now grown up, each with his or her own life that is being led. And we get not just a bit, but quite a lot, in fact, of their own lives that is gathered or interspersed or interwoven into the various plots or subplots that we see not just introduced, but also unleashed into this particular work or setting or cinematic event that is The Celebration. So along the way, we not only meet the close family or the close friends, but we also see certain associates, and we, as I say, the grown-up children of this particular family. So these are the characters played by Paprika Steen and Thomas Bo Larsen and also Ulrik Thomsen. And we begin to get a sense among the events leading up to the actual feast or banquet or celebration itself, which is, we understand, over the course of this excursion over the course of a couple days. We understand that there are some things that seem to be on the surface, this idea of the celebration, a festive occasion, a happy occasion, but already from the very start, we also get a sense of things that are hidden, that are beneath the surface, but that are also bubbling up to the fore, and are ready not just to bubble forth and become revealed, but in fact become revealed in this spectacular and almost volcanic fashion. And in that spectacular and volcanic fashion of revelation, things really come to a head. And we see not just the notion or concept of the celebration, but we also see the hints and also the direct references to tragedy, to trauma, to hidden secrets, to bursts of emotion and intensity, to passions, to fundamental aspects of human life and human experience, the idea of human relationships, love, hate, and intense, say, lust, as well as family, as well as betrayal, as well as socio-political aspects of, say, race and racial relations. We also see the idea of class, the levels of, say, upstairs and downstairs. And we also see levels of generational gaps as well as generational influences. What happens on one generational level might have certain ramifications or implications to another generational level. And I mean not only the effects of, say, an emotional type of trauma, but also physical trauma as well, and the threats of violence that could emerge when these, as I say, spectacularly volcanic eruptions of past and secrets and pent-up frustration and anger and intense emotion come to the fore in this way that we see depicted and captured by Thomas Vinterberg and company. So this is the setup or the structure by which the house of cards can be said to collapse spectacularly. Or we see, perhaps another way to view it is, even though we have certain volcanic eruptions of secrets and past and trauma, we also we bear witness to how the group react to these particular revelations. Do people react in a way that is in a way sympathetic, or do people react in a way as to, say, ignore what is going on, the issues that are going on, and which is the right way to handle certain things? Where is one's place when we're dealing with, as I say, this very ornate setting, or not ornate is the wrong word, but more a setting of, say, manners, and also a setting of certain rules and conventions. After all, these are guests at a house party in a sense, and so there are certain conventions and rules that seem to be observed as well as broken as the proceedings occur, as the running time continues forward. So there is a lot here, I would say, with regard to the gathering and the collection of various points that can emerge or merge or collide, and sometimes when they collide in this most epic and shocking and quite intense way. But at the same time, we also see amongst the various sets of emotional intensity that each of the characters brings to the table, we also see the possibility, or we get a sense of the possibility of a type of, say, recovery. We also get a sense of a type of confrontation of certain secrets or trauma. We also see and how that might be in many ways not just confrontational, but also perhaps even therapeutic. There also might be ways of serving a sense of justice. There also might be instances of family members that are maybe have a quote unquote a difficult past, and maybe how that difficult past has its effects on how people within the family unit relate to each other. For instance, it's an interesting development to see, or interesting comparison to see, how the parents of this particular family, the matriarch and the patriarch characters respectively, how they each seem to have their own relationships with their grown-up children. And one of the things too that emerges is not just the family troubles and the family trauma, but also the family tragedies, because we also understand that maybe not all the family members are surviving, and we get a little bit more of that backstory. And as more details emerge, we understand that things can be quite dark indeed. But as I say, within that darkness and within those moments of, say, spectacular revelation, we also get a sense of the possibility of recovery, and also the possibility of therapy, and also the possibility of a type of human connection, human bonds. This is a story of characters that are clashing, but also a story of characters that seem to be able, or seem to be trying to, at the very least, make connections with each other. And those connections, I think, are very vital and very valuable, and indeed very potentially very optimistic in a world that is also giving us a sense of the pessimistic, or the sense of the truly dark and the truly horrifying dark corners of human nature. So we have a myriad of possibilities that are presented on the plate, as it were, in the form of this of this particular work. I was going to say the word comedy as well, and this is one of the great strengths of the film. This film, as I was suggesting, maybe presents certain aspects of, say, darkness and light, certain aspects of human interaction and human character that are touching upon very sensitive and quite intense, emotionally impactful themes. Also, at the same time, there is a real rush of energy and a real sense of perspective, almost a warped perspective, but still a really high, intense energy octane perspective that also lends, in a lot of ways, to a sense of the breathless speed of comic timing. There are some comic scenes in here, as well as scenes of the intensely emotional, as well as the confrontational, and the tragic and terrifying, and also the hopeful. So this is a real well-balanced, multi-layered sense of a film journey, or a sense of a film, say, examination of this particular family unit, and indeed the extended friends and associates that we also meet along the way during the course of this, as the title suggests, celebration. Now, I should say too that this film is known for, also, it's known for many things. It's known as being work by this very exciting and incredibly talented filmmaker and artist, Thomas Vinterberg. It is also known for its associations with what is known as Dogma 95, and this very important and influential film movement. And so there are some very intriguing points about this particular style of filmmaking, and the way in which we see, as it's translated onto the screen, this use of camera, this use of technology, this sense of limitation, this idea of capturing a type of performance or series of performances that are subjective to, as we understand later, that are subjected to certain rules and convention that have been established in what is known as Dogma 95 and the principles. So there are a lot of things that I think are quite intriguing in terms of what we see in the context of the story, as well as what we see in the context of the construction of this particular work, the celebration. Now, when we get to Dogma 95 itself, there is a really lovely and incredibly insightful a documentary that is included as part of the Criterion Collection supplements package here, and we'll get to that when we talk about the supplements later on in this video. But this is a very key aspect already of this film. So the nature in which it is being made, as well as the subject matter that is at the focus of what is being made. And then we have at the center of this the filmmaker Thomas Vinterberg and company, and bringing together a tale that is very harrowing and very absorbing and very filled with twists and turns, as well as being very much focusing in an intense way, focusing in, it could be said to be towards the very essentials of the human condition. And this is, I think, very much linked to the filmmaking method itself, the Dogma 95 method itself, at least in the form of this work, the celebration, because it could be said that going to the bare essentials of filmmaking, as it were, is a tool that is being employed in a way to tell a story that is, or it could be said to be, trying to aim at identifying and examining what could be said to be the fundamentals, the bare essentials, the fundamentals of the human condition. That is the core values of this family, and how those values have been, say, tainted or tarnished or damaged, or how those values have been, say, warped or mutated, over the course of generations, or perhaps how those values have some hope of seeing some kind of remedy or repair, or perhaps even some further positive development. And so there is something quite fundamental in terms of the human condition that is being examined, and it's being examined under this lens, which also could be said to be aiming towards something of capturing the fundamental essence of cinema. That is Dogma 95. And so there is a strong link. Thomas Vinterberg is the filmmaker that is linking the celebration with this particular style of filmmaking. It is in his hands, and of course in the hands of the crew that he is working with, the casting crew that he's working with, and they're coming together, combining their resources to create this incredibly compelling, harrowing, high-octane, energy-filled work that is, even after it has been initially released in 1998, watching it now is a kind of a an experience that really holds up, and it holds up because, as I would think, I think it holds up because for a number of reasons, but I think one of those main reasons is that it is really getting at the heart of something that is fundamentally essential, something that I think touches on something that we all can maybe get a sense of, or understand, or at least have a type of accessibility. And when we access the world, of course, as I say, there are many aspects of the world that are terrifying and chilling. But at the same time, there are also aspects of the world that could be said to be very, maybe potentially hopeful, and also potentially comic, and also very much focusing in on that which we call humanity. So this is the work from 1998, Thomas Vinterberg's work, which is The Celebration, or Festen. This is the Criterion Collection release of The Celebration, and it is on this double disc Blu-ray edition, which is incredible. And there's so many supplements as well, and we'll get to that momentarily. But as far as the film is concerned, it is on the first disc, the first of the two discs, and the film is purported to be based upon a 2K digital restoration of the work with monaural soundtrack. And it is a Dogma 95 work, and so that means that the presentation is, I think, really key, and it has that Dogma 95 look, and that will be further explained when we talk about one of the other supplements here. But I think it has that sense of energy and vitality that I think is at the heart, or it's one of the aspects of this film, and indeed the entire movement, that I think make or that continue to make this line of works, quite compelling indeed. And so this is a very exciting release in my view. So well done for being able to do this. And talk about the packaging. I'll talk about this later, but this is also very intriguing. I'll get to this as well. Really great design, very clever, well done indeed. Now, when we're talking about the first disc, we also have included with the film, we have a number of things. So the first is a commentary track from 2005. Now this is with Thomas Vinterberg. It is in it is in Danish, but when you watch it, for someone like myself, I'm not fluent at all in the Danish language. But when I selected on my Blu-ray player the optional audio commentary track, the commentary track will also be accompanied by English subtitles as well. And so I can listen into the commentary track and also read the subtitles to hear, or to get a sense of what Thomas Vinterberg is talking about during the commentary track. And my sense of it is that it is a really it's great. It's great. He talks about many things. For instance, he talks about the performers, the actors that he worked with. I mentioned them earlier, like Ulrik Thomsen and Thomas Borg Larsen and Pepper Christine and Hella Dolores, Bertha Neumann, and Henning Mortensen and others. And he also speaks about another thing too, which I was trying to refer to earlier, about how this is not all a dark tragedy, intense film. I mean, it does have those parts in strong helpings, that's for sure. But it also has doses of humor and comedy. And there's a phrase that he mentions during the commentary track, and I paraphrase. He says, I think if we only saw the road to hell, people would reject the film. And the point here that he's making is that he thought that it not just is part of the human condition that's being presented, but also as part of the film and its potential acceptance or rejection by viewers and by filmgoers. He thought that having the comic elements or the humorous elements, he thought would help further create those bridges of accessibility. And I think that's a really intriguing point. Not to say that a film like this, if it were totally bereft of any moments of comedy, I mean, I think that would be itself a very intense and incredibly powerful experience. But there is something, too, that can be said about his view on trying to create this sense of, for lack of a better word, balance between these various tones. And as I was indicating earlier, I think that is really valuable because it is a further indication of this film really trying to, at least in my view, trying to examine a certain aspect or certain aspects of the human condition in the form of this particular gathering and in the form of the relationship dynamics of the family members. So incredible insightful comment from Thomas Vinterberg here. And those insightful comments, I think, continue on in terms of his fascination with the form and formality of, say, dinner parties. Now, this is a very interesting theme that could be said to be running through a number of Vinterberg's works, including the celebration. So there's this idea of the things that could be said to be on the surface level banter, or the things that hide things, and the hidden things remain hidden for the most part anyway, and the surface level things remain surface level in the context of the very formal gathering, which is the banquet or dinner scenes. These tend to be social gatherings that could be said to be very much encompassing or being accompanied by their own set of rules. And those rules could be said in certain contexts to mask what is really being going on underneath. However, in the hands of Vinterberg and company, what's going on is incredibly interesting in that we see throughout the course of the film how the dinner or banquet or the social gathering, on the one hand, could be said to be masking certain, say, hidden feelings or truths, masking them in a sense of a surface veneer on the one hand. However, at the same time, it is through the process of this social gathering, whether it's the combination of the relaxed atmosphere and alcohol and drink, or it's the feeling of being around people that we don't know or that we don't see on a daily, day-to-day basis, but we get a kind of a feeling of inspiration or a sense of excitement, that sort of thing. Whatever the case may be, there is also the way in which the surface level seems to break down. And in fact, these gatherings, with all of their form and formality, also provide a means by which the truths can come out, where the truth might not be able to emerge in other moments of one's life. So this is a very interesting and quite, I think, complex examination of the social dynamic that is the social gathering here. And in the hands of Vinterberg, I think it creates this intriguing degree of nuance and the like. And so I'm very intrigued by this course of the commentary that he's bringing along with. And indeed, also, too, this is one of the themes that could be said to be part of a strong component of the filmography of Vinterberg writ large. So incredible comment here. So, well done here. He's also talking, too, about the idea of preparation, or maybe the minimization of preparation. And this leads to his conversation or comments here in the track about the dogma principles and how it was and also the camera work, and how he was trying to work within the principles framework, but also create a sense of what he called, or what is referred to in the commentary track as, a mishmash of styles. And this is working with the concept of the video technology, and sometimes we're talking about certain aspects that are of the use and framing of the shots, or the use of the handheld camera, which is he cites as being one of the principles. And also trying to there might be moments. There's actually a couple moments that are cited here and elsewhere that might be said to be breaking some of the rules of the Dogma 95 principles, the vow of chastity as it's known elsewhere. So this is a very, I think, insightful a course of commentary regarding the context of this film in the Dogma 95 categories. And he talks about the creation of these characters. He talks about the backstories that they seem to be inhabiting, or the actors seem to be filling in terms of their roles. And there's a lot of backstory. There's a lot of backstory that is perhaps only hinted at or not even expressed directly on screen, but there's so much weight and heft that is brought forth with regard to or vis-a-vis each of these relationship dynamics, especially between and among the family members. And this is very important because the past and their past, say, life events, these are also incredibly important in the context of the story. So cheers to Thomas Vinterberg for bringing this up during the commentary track, as well as talking about certain themes of, say, race and racism that also emerge. He's also talking about the use of songs and stage adaptations as well, and how certain aspects might have translated well, or maybe there might be some difficulty in translating other aspects. And he mentions a particular instance or a very significant moment in the film involving a song and singing. And this is also, I think, combining very nicely with the way in which the use of music and song it fits into the whole scheme of Dogma 95 as well. So for these and other reasons, this commentary track from a few years back, I'm very glad that Criterion was able to include it here as well. So well done, well done. And if you haven't watched the film with this commentary track, please, I recommend it wholeheartedly. This is a really fantastic source of inspiration and background details about this from the filmmaker himself, Thomas Vinterberg. So there is that optional commentary track. And then going on to the other supplements that are found on this first disc, we have a one-on-one interview with Thomas Vinterberg himself. This is described as being from 2021, approximately 18 minutes. And so this is a discussion where he is speaking about his philosophy of cinema. He's talking about the creative process. He speaks about other filmmakers that have inspired him, in particular Tarkovsky he mentions, Ingmar Bergman he mentions. There's a really interesting anecdote he does. He talks about Bergman and career advice. Which is, I think, at maybe the latter half of this particular interview. So it's fascinating stuff. And he also speaks, too, about some of his other works in his filmography, such as some short films that he made, which are known in English as Last Round, and also The Boy Who Walked Backwards. And these two works are also included as part of the supplements package when we get to the second disc. And here he touches briefly on each of these films, or at least the themes of each of these films. The former, perhaps, he mentions the idea or themes of honesty, the idea of naive or naivete, and pureness or purity, or these concepts here in terms of the rendering of characters. And as far as the latter film is concerned, he's talking about loss. He refers to the idea of rituals and the repetition, and the concept of time itself, how time is captured. And then he also brings into the conversation his take on the principles of dogma, and working in the context of, or perhaps breaking the mold, as it were, in some instances that are revealed throughout the course of these supplements with regard to the dogma principles, and the restrictions or limitations, and how the intent of this, the intent of the application of the dogma principles was to get at something, and he refers to it, physical and present and honest. And as I was trying to hint at earlier, I was trying to suggest that maybe this is one of the ways in which you take these principles and trying to tell a story like The Celebration that is dealing quite literally with the principle of the physical present and an honest approach to that. So it's a great discussion that he brings up. He also talks a little bit about his own life and background, his background on the commune, as well as his own career. And he has a really, I think, honest perspective on his career and his career choices post The Celebration, leading up to his most recent works. And so it is a refreshing and beautifully honest and very intimate and lovely in terms of its casual feel and mode, because it's like a casual talk, and yet he is giving us so much great stuff. So that and more. This is the Thomas Vinterberg interview from 2021. Again, approximately 18 minutes on the first disc. And then the first disc's supplements then are rounded out by a trailer that is also included. So it's a really intriguing trailer. So please check it out if you can. So this rounds out the first disc of the Blu-ray edition of The Celebration from Criterion. That's not all, of course, because as we know, this is a 2-disc Blu-ray edition. And so the second disc has a lot of stuff as well. And so what do we have here? So first off, earlier, or I should say in one of the interviews that is mentioned or that is included in the first disc, Thomas Vinterberg makes reference to 2 short films that he made, one in 1993 and one in 1995. The 93 work being Last Round, as it's known in English, and the 95 work being The Boy Who Walked Backwards. And the first being 32 minutes and the second being 38 minutes, respectively. Now, these 2 films do find themselves here included, this time on the second disc. So this is fantastic. This is fantastic. So we have the first film, Last Round. Thomas Larsen appears in a very key role. And as Thomas Vinterberg was talking about in the earlier interview, or the 2021 interview, on the first disc, this film could be said to be talking about a sense of honesty or purity. There is a real sense of maybe the importance that's placed on, say, friendship or bonds, especially when maybe there are instances or circumstances where time is limited. One's life might be limited, and how one wishes to spend one's life or one's moments, and how time is also maybe expressed or maybe elongated in the context of the yearning or search for these bonds of human connection. Now, this is a very emotionally resonant work in those and other aspects, and it's presented in this lovely rendered way in the form of many things. For example, the Thomas Larsen performance. And it's a great revelation too into the range of Thomas Larsen himself, because those of you who know The Celebration know that the characters that he plays, or the character that he plays there versus the character that he plays here, could be said to be quite different in terms of approach to life and circumstances, and the way that they interact with others. So it's another brilliant aspect, or a brilliant revelation, or a brilliant showing of the craft and expertise of these great performers, as well as telling this tale that is also maybe trying to get at the idea or notion of gatherings, of social gatherings, of get-togethers, and also how that is very distancing, but also that has a real sincere possibility for true emotional connection. And also throw into the mix the notion of time and limitations, but also the sense of freedom and the sense of a type of well-being, notwithstanding all of the stuff that could happen to one's life. So Last Round, a really lovely and powerful and human and humane portrait, or series of portraits captured within its 30 minutes or so. A great inclusion here. Please check it out if you can. And it can also be said, I think, in those ways to be a lovely companion to The Celebration. There are differences, of course, arguably, but there are also some wonderful companion points. So please check it out if you can. Then the second of the short films that's included it's known in English, The Boy Who Walked Backwards. And this is talking about or dealing with a story that is about tragedy, that could be said to be about loss, dealing with that tragedy or loss in the sense or in the backdrop of family or familial connections, how families try to deal with a sense of trauma, a joint trauma, but also individualized trauma, and how that is also very much connected with the notion of perspective. One of those perspectives, on display in this short film, is the perspective of a child, the children's perspective. And children characters are key in this, and how how viewpoints on life from the child's perspective, the child's viewpoint, can be said to be either maybe naive, but also maybe quite illuminating and also quite revelatory at the same time, as well as the sense of, as Thomas Vinterberg mentioned in the 2021 interview from Disc 1, the notion of loss and tragedy and ritual. The idea of ritual is on display here, again, from the child's perspective, which is very raw and very pure and very powerful. And that could be said to be also on display, or maybe another point of connection with a film like The Celebration. For example, the idea of the banquet or the social gathering or the celebration itself could be said to be its own way a ritual. And if we can break down that point, and we can see how the ritual, while it could be said to be masking certain aspects using surface level rules, at the same time the ritual also is a point in which certain truths can be revealed in a way that they would otherwise not be revealed elsewhere. Well, the same could be said potentially of the way in which rituals are employed and used and examined in a work like The Boy Who Walked Backwards. So another great companion piece, another great work on its own, another example of the power and drive of Vinterberg's work and his philosophy and his viewpoint towards his characters. And just an emotionally powerful story, another emotionally powerful story indeed. So you're getting the 2 short films and the feature-length film as well. So it's a great tapestry. So please check it out if you can. So that's not all, because then we have a documentary from, it's described as being from 2002, and it's known in English as The Purified, and this is from Jesper Jargil, and it is focusing in on Dogma 95. And I mentioned earlier that Dogma 95 is one of the key aspects of this work, and the idea of what Dogma 95 is, what the principles are, who are the main players of Dogma 95, what is referred to when they speak of what's known as the vow of chastity, what are the principles, and how these principles are being employed, or perhaps in some very intriguing and subtle, or maybe not so subtle ways, how those principles are being broken, and what those principles are, why those principles are being employed, who are the main players, etc., etc., etc. And for those who are maybe not experts in terms of the history of Dogma 95, for instance, I don't claim to be at all in any way an expert in Dogma 95. I know very generally of what it is, but I don't know certain details. And so from my perspective, for someone like myself, watching the documentary like The Purified is a great place to go. It's a really wonderful source of further information. So we have other key players. We have, for instance, Thomas Vinterberg, but also Christian Levering and Søren Krag Jacobsen and Lars von Trier and others, who are essentially maybe talking about or visiting or revisiting some of their works and some of the other key works in the Dogma 95 period or philosophy, included in which is The Celebration. So if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about what this is and how this is so very fundamentally important to the making of The Celebration and indeed other works, and I strongly recommend that you can check out this documentary, The Purified, for that and other for more information on that, and also some more details about what other films, could emerge in your own, say, Dogma 95 journey, in case you're interested. So this is, again, really, really important. So important, in fact, that the Dogma 95 concept is built into the actual physical media presentation itself. And I'll get to that momentarily here. The whole look of this Criterion disc, by the way, is centered on the Dogma 95 principles. So to have a documentary like The Purified is very, very helpful indeed. So this is from 2002. Still, it's great to have it included here as well. So please check it out if you can. It's approximately, 1 hour and 7 minutes. So it's a full, robust documentary, but also it can help to launch one's further, say, journey or investigation or research into what this is. Please check it out if you haven't already. And that's not all, because continuing on the supplements of the second disc, we have Disclosure of the Celebration, 2005, and this is another interview with Thomas Vinterberg. This is approximately 9 minutes. Now here he is talking about the inspiration for the story that ended up becoming the celebration. Now, this is one of the most intriguing aspects of a work that is already intriguing as it is, in terms of what we see layered and the multi-layered aspect of the filmmaking process, the actual technical aspects of the Dogma 95 principle, etc., but also the inspiration of what actually happened or what may or may not have actually happened here. And to hear not just those details of Coppola's Crisfeld and Allen, and also what was the inspiration for this and how they were trying to, Thomas Vinterberg and others were trying to discover the truth of what was alleged to have happened in real life that could be said to be forming the basis of the inspiration of this work, and the investigation that led to the discovery of what might or might not have indeed happened. And so that story is a fascinating one in and of itself. And so I don't want to spoil so much of the details. I want to leave them as unspoiled as possible. So in case you haven't seen or heard, or you're not aware yet of the actual details of what the inspiration was and how that was further revealed, I encourage you to check out this interview with Thomas Vinterberg, who explains indeed what's going on. And there are so many twists along the way, even at the very end. There is another twist upon a twist upon a twist. So it's fascinating stuff. So please check this out if you can. I'm so glad that this was also included. Another thing I'm so glad that was included is also it's described as being a documentary, a TV doc from 98. It's described here behind the scenes, approximately 24 minutes. And this is focusing in on the premiere of the film at that time, and also focusing in on a number of the actors, that were very key in the work itself, as well as the filmmaker himself. And so we get some intriguing details that were revealed elsewhere, but also some intriguing details about the nature of these characters and how they try, or the performers, how they try to establish a sense of philosophy in some of the characters that they were playing, especially, or maybe in instances where that might have been incredibly difficult, or maybe antithesis to their own, say, approach. I would bring as an example the great actor Henning Mortensen, who plays the patriarch, and it could be said that maybe he there might have been, that character is a very complex character indeed, and so there were certain challenges that were revealed that have been described in some of these supplements here and elsewhere, about how there might have been certain challenges on the part of him as an actor to try to relate to the character that he was portraying, especially considering the depths in which his character is involved very precisely and very intensely in a number of the relationships that are key to the film The Celebration. So this and other examples, I think, are what make this behind-the-scenes stuff really great, to get the actual contemporary perspectives at the time. And then also, there's also a great little, maybe not anecdote, but there's a great comment or set of comments that Vinterberg makes too about The Godfather, the film The Godfather, and he acknowledges how there is a type of family dynamic in this film, and he acknowledges maybe there is a type of inspiration that he took from the way in which family dynamics are presented in The Godfather, the Francis Ford Coppola work. So I love that connection as well. And he also, I love how he is so enthusiastic about The Godfather as well. And it reminds us too about how he has his own, say, cinematic inspirations. He mentioned, for instance, Tarkovsky and Bergman in the 2021 interview from Disc 1. So that and other reasons, great stuff to have. So check out the behind the scenes 24 minutes here. And that's not all, because then we get another documentary, which is called The Celebration in Retrospect. This is 2005. This is 26 minutes. And here we have a number of the players or a number of the participants, other participants that are speaking or that are referred to in the context of what this film was, the impact that it had, how it was made, and how really historically significant it was, not just in the recent history of cinema, but arguably speaking in the stretch of cinema, the whole span of cinema. And so we have comments from people like Ulrich Thompson, or and comments or references with respect to participants and players like Ulrich Thompson and Anthony Dodd Mantle. And we'll get to Anthony Dodd Mantle's work in another supplement momentarily. Maurice Rukov, etc., and also the impact that this film had. Cannes, and also the festival circuit, and also the impact it had on world cinema, and the way in which this essentially introduced to the world Dogma 95 filmmaking. And not just introduce it, but introduce it with a great sense of emphasis and a great sense of authority and presence, and not least also talking about the nature of the film itself and the working relationship and how the film was brought together, even under a certain set of limitations and restrictions, circumstances, brought together in this almost whirlwind of creative energy, and it formed the celebration. So the celebration in retrospect, this is approximately 26 minutes, wonderful inclusion, so please check it out if you can. Also, there's, I should say too, another thing that is revealed is so interesting how they didn't know, and they reveal it here, they didn't know if the film would work or not. And there was not really that sense of, they didn't know until it was going to come together. And so that is itself very fascinating. It also shows the way in which there is this real, almost, again, I don't know how else to describe it except using the word, a sense of purity, a sense of real honest earnestness on the part of everyone involved. And again, not realizing until the release that they had something that would essentially, in many ways, change the world. So, wow. There's also an interesting description, it's mentioned earlier in other supplements, but how maybe this film, The Celebration, is not 100% adhering to all the principles of Dogma 95. And so, in case you're interested in that, there are some indications of how that might be the case. So for those and other reasons, please check out this particular documentary if you can. Celebration in retrospect, approximately 26 minutes. That's not all, because then we get another great supplement described as being from 2003, Sherry Roman, and this is under the title of ADM DOP. And this is focusing in on Anthony Dodd Mantle, director of photography, and it's approximately 12 minutes. He is, of course, a very key figure in this film and also in other, say, Dogma 95 films and other films, of course, that are mentioned here and also that are mentioned or referred to by extension. But of course, his work here in the context of the celebration should be emphasized. There is this aspect of camera and the way that camera is capturing detail and color and the capturing of a palette that for me was such a valuable conversation, because I have, or I had, or maybe I have, present tense, a very, very limited and shallow appreciation of the technical aspects of cinema. And when I think of Dogma 95, I perhaps have that or I had that misconception, perhaps, that it's using a video camera. But in fact, what Anthony Dodd Mantle reminds us is that even in the context of this very limited use of technological resources, like a video camera that is used, say, in the celebration, there is still so much thought and care and precision that is being devoted to the look and feel and color scheme and framing, etc., that are so fundamentally important to the visual and indeed cinematic experience of this and of any film. And to hear Anthony Dodd Mantle speak not only to this, but speak with such conviction and such pride and such confidence about this and other films that he has made in a similar type of technological aspect or approach. This is really great, and it's a lovely, lovely reminder about how this is also very consistent with Dogma 95. It is also a way in which Dogma 95 is, in its own way, its own brilliant way, still appreciating and adhering to the wonders of the beauty of the cinematic craft in filmmaking and video making, and indeed the photography and the capturing of the image. And so this is, from the words of Anthony Dodd Mandel, a great reminder of this. He also speaks about other filmmakers that he works with, Danny Boyle, Harmon Korine, and Lars von Trier, and also Thomas Vinterberg and others. And he also speaks to, in the context of Festen, or the celebration, the concept of freedom and the concept of liberation on the one hand, but there's also a sense of the adherence to the principles. So this is fascinating stuff. So I'm getting all this information that might seem on the surface to be somewhat contradictory, but in fact it's not. We have the idea of freedom on the one hand in terms of shooting and the approach to camera work, while at the same time adhering to the quote-unquote strict principles of Dogma 95. We also get a sense of adhering to a sense of, say, the limitations on technical craft on the one hand that the principles seem to suggest, while at the same time the director of photography is telling us that he is still very much adhering to a sense of a principled type of approach to the director of photography role. And so that type of interaction between limitations and freedom, between the creative process and the adherence to some kind of sense of cinematic purity, for lack of a better phrase. This is a great example of this type of explanation. And it's a further explanation of not just his philosophy, but also, it could be said, the philosophy of Dogma 95, at least in the context of the work like the celebration. Great discussion, Anthony Dodd Mandel, and the importance of the photography aspect here. So please check it out if you have not already. Again, it's approximately 12 minutes. And that's not all, because then we have this great section, the deleted scene section. So I understand that this and other supplements might have been included in other past, say, non-Criterion releases of this film. But still, it's great that Criterion was able to include it for its own release. And I include the deleted scene section as well in my praise, because this is great. It's approximately 45 minutes overall, and it has, too, an optional director's commentary track. Here we have so many things that emerge, and we come to realize that this film was indeed this epic thing. There were so many characters, in fact. There's one character in particular, maybe one, I don't want to go into too much detail here, but there might have been certain characters that could have been in this longer, extended version of what could have been the celebration, but then were cut out at the last minute for the purposes, of what ended up becoming the final version. And indeed, there are some changes that were, not changes, but there, in the deleted scenes, we get a sense of what could have been. And the trajectory of the story, in particular, for example, the ending, or how the film reaches a conclusion that could be said to be quite different from what we had in the theatrical, or not theatrical, but the actual final version, This and other reasons make the deleted scenes so compelling. And it also goes towards Thomas Vinterberg and company, what their process is in terms of trying to figure out the essence of what it is they want to tell, how they made decisions about what to include, what to excise, what they decided in terms of how to lead the story to a conclusion that they felt was, quote unquote, the best conclusion for purposes of the story, and that ended up being what we see in the final version. But not to take anything away from any of their creative decisions that they made along the way that we see revealed in, for example, the deleted scenes. So this is great stuff. It's great stuff. As I say, it's great that Criterion was able to include it. It might have been a part of past releases, but still, and as far as these other documentaries as well, it might have been part of past releases, but the fact that Criterion was able to include it here as well is so enlightening indeed. So I'm so glad this is here. Well done. It's its own little journey. It's like its own little alternative universe of a film, and it really makes the film, which already we know has so much depth, it just makes it even, it has that feeling of depth and then some. So please check out the deleted scenes as well if you can. It's great stuff. Great stuff indeed. And that rounds out the wealth of extras and supplements that we find on the second disc of the Criterion release of The Celebration. Now, going to the actual packaging here, we have this wonderful design. Now, I've taken out the booklet here, so I just want to let you know, I've just taken it out here. So we have this transparent casing, at least for the front here, except for this section here. It says Dogma 1, The Celebration, 01:45:031998. And I think that refers to the running time as well as the year of release, and then the title in Dogma 1. So this is a really intriguing way of presenting it, and then has a type of look that might be suggestive of the principles of Dogma 95. And indeed, those principles are outlined in the booklet here, which I've taken out. It's a stable booklet. The size, too, is an interesting thing. It's slightly smaller in dimension than the actual size of the casing, but that's great, too, because it's bringing, calling attention to the fact that it has this Dogma 95 feel, and that also further, we are further reminded of this, not least of which because the actual principles are indicated in this red booklet cover in English, and this is also reminding us, we see a moment in the documentary on Dogma 95 where the principles are actually handed out in a hand, where they're actually thrown out into the audience by Lars von Trier in this red paper. And so that is a great reminder of the principles at the time. So this is a great look. This is a really, really great look. And you have the two discs which continue on with this particular look and feel. So well done to Criterion for being able to do this. I should point out here that the credits in the booklet indicate art director Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, designer Jason Hardy. So well done. This is a brilliant design. I love it. I really love it. Just to take a look here, you have this white, very almost. Again, it's a Dogma 95 look to it. I'm just so impressed with this. And this look, I should say too, before I forget, this look also has, or it's carried through when you put the discs in, you have this theme, this visual theme for the menu section of the Blu-ray discs themselves, disc 1 and disc 2. It's a great thing to have overall. So it's an overall package. I should point out, however, that I could be wrong, but I understand that the word dogma is spelled D-O-G-M-E. And in fact, you can see here that it's spelled D-O-G-M-E here on the cover here. That's okay. However, when you go into the menu of the Blu-ray disc itself, actually it says it has this little box here as part of the menu section. And indeed, at least as far as the discs that I have for both disc 1 and disc 2, the version I have here, it spells the word D-O-G with an A at the end, D-O-G-M-A 1, D-O-G-M-A 1. So I'm not sure, maybe that's a spelling error in terms of the menu section of the version that I have. But in any event, we have Dogma E adorning the front cover here. So that's wonderful. And then going to the actual booklet itself, we have a number of photographs here that are just wonderful presentations. I love the look as well as the actual photographs themselves, and also the essay. This is a great essay, and this is by Michael Koresky, the one, the only Michael Koresky. It's called How Long Can This Go On? It's great to have Michael Koresky essays here. For those of you who know the Criterion Collection and know the contributions that Michael Koresky has made in the past, you'll no doubt recognize that it's just a wonderful thing to have a Koresky essay, and not just, and that's not the only point of celebration here, of course, here, because the content of this essay is great. He speaks, of course, of the certain specific themes of the film, certain aspects of Vinterberg's filmmaking style, craft, philosophy, and filmography. So, of course, I suggest that one watches the film first before reading the essay, but after you've seen the film, you can go to this essay. It's brilliant. There's some other references made. There's a lovely reference made, for instance, to the Buñuel work called, in English, The Exterminating Angel, and this idea of banquets and social gatherings, etc. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a very key, nuanced, and complex portrait of that aspect, the social gathering in the hands of Vinterberg and others. So for those and other reasons, the Koresky essay here, it's great. How long can this go on? Brilliant stuff. So please check it out if you can. My goodness, I should say too that the credits, or the booklet, indicates the transfer is a 2018 digital transfer, a collaboration between the Danish Film Institute and Nimbus Film, 2K resolution, and so the like. So you can find more information on that in the final pages of the booklet here, and the like. So, as well as I say, the theme of Dogma 95, which is captured here, and part of the overall look and aesthetic of the release, which is the celebration. My dear friends, that is the Criterion Collection release of the Vinterberg work, which is the celebration, Festen, or the celebration. This is a great way to start the year 2022, and it's also a great way to explore yet another intriguing, great period from the mid to late 1990s, and that is Dogma 95. And what better way to examine that than in the context of this work? Wow, it's great stuff from Criterion. The celebration, Festen, this release, this double disc Blu-ray release from Criterion. If you haven't seen it already and you are curious about it, I think this is going to form a great place for the journey, your cinema journey, with regard to the Vinterberg work. Thomas Vinterberg, 1998. The celebration, Festen. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. Thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again, hopefully very soon. But in the meantime, please continue to be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies. So I look forward to talking with you about the Criterion Collection releases for this year, as well as other films where we can. But in the meantime, and until then, be well and cheers.